Hey epic nerds out there, welcome to Explosive Nerd HQ, your ultimate destination for comic book sagas that'll blow your mind. I'm your host, bringing you the best of Marvel, DC, and more. Today, we're kicking off Civil War #1, and you won't want to miss this epic battle. But before we dive in, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, smash the notification bell so you never miss an explosion of nerdy goodness, and drop a comment below. Your support is what keeps this channel alive and thriving. Let's get into the action. The story begins inside the control room of WINH Channel 8, a TV station broadcasting a reality show featuring the New Warriors. A production team member is seated, monitoring multiple screens, with live feeds from Stamford, Connecticut, while the agent, standing, communicates with the heroes outside. Hidden in the bushes, Speedball, Namorita, Microbe, and Night Thrasher. Speedball is being filmed by another reality show crew member, capturing the live action. The four heroes are watching a residential house, where the supervillains, Cobalt Man, Coldheart, Speed Freak, and Nitro are hiding. The only villain visible at the moment, Coldheart, who appears in the backyard, taking out the trash. Tension fills the air as the film crew captures everything from a distance. The agent asked, "All right, how many supervillains are we talking about? Speedball?" Speedball replied, "3, no, wait, I think I see Coldheart in the backyard taking out the trash. That's 4 of them total, and all 4 are on the FBI's most wanted list, right?" The agent said, "Cobalt Man, Coldheart, Speed Freak, Nitro, yep, all of them broke out of Rikers 3 months ago. And they've all got rap sheets as long as your arm. Coldheart has fought Spider-Man a few times. And get this, Speed Freak almost took down the Hulk." The story continues in the bushes in Stamford, Connecticut, where the 4 members of the New Warriors, Speedball, Namorita, Microbe, and Night Thrasher are hiding, watching the house where the villains, Cobalt Man, Coldheart, Speed Freak, and Nitro are holed up. Speedball is being filmed by a reality show crew member, capturing the tense moment for the program. The group is huddled together, whispering as they assess the situation. Night Thrasher asked, "Hey, what?" Microbe replied, "These guys are totally out of our league, man. No way we should be going in there." Speedball said, "But think about the ratings, Microbe. This could be the best episode of the entire second season." A van with the New Warriors logo is parked on a nearby street, marking the presence of the reality show production. Speedball, still focused on the house, said, "6 months we've been driving around the Midwest, looking for goofballs to fight, and the best we've managed was a bum with a spray can and a wooden leg. This could be the episode that really puts New Warriors on the map, dude. We beat these guys, and people stop bitching about Nova leaving the show to go back into space." Namorita, keeping her eyes on the house, turned to Speedball with a serious look. Namorita asked, "What's the plan?" Speedball replied, "The plan is you spend 5 more minutes in makeup. Namorita, you think people want to see that great big ugly zit on your chin?" Night Thrasher, now observing the house with binoculars, analyzes the situation carefully, while a production crew member applies makeup to Namorita, preparing her for the shoot. Microbe, nearby, whispered, "What's up?" Speedball responded, "Then we..." But Night Thrasher interrupted, his voice tense, "Oh." In the backyard of the house, Coldheart appears, holding a trash bag, unaware that she's being watched. Night Thrasher, still looking through the binoculars, said, "We've been marked." The story continues inside the house in Stamford, Connecticut, where the villains, Cobalt Man, Coldheart, Speed Freak, and Nitro are hiding. The living room is filled with furniture, couches, a coffee table, scattered papers, suggesting the group was planning something. Coldheart, who moments earlier was in the backyard, bursts in through the back door, alerting the other villains, everyone in costume. It's a raid. The action erupts as the New Warriors storm the house, crashing through the window with force. Speedball leads the charge, followed by Namorita, Night Thrasher, and Microbe, all ready for the confrontation. Speedball yelled, "Go!" The impact of the hero's entrance catches the villains off guard. Speed Freak, near the window, is thrown back by the force, crashing to the floor amid scattered papers and objects. He exclaimed, in shock, "Holy crap!" The story continues outside the house in Stamford, Connecticut, where the battle between the new warriors and the villains is in full swing. Speed Freak is hurled out of the house, crashing hard onto the front lawn. As papers and debris fly around him, Speed Freak exclaimed, "Oof!" Speedball charges forward, delivering a powerful punch to Speed Freak that sends him reeling even further back. A production crew member, holding a camera, films the action up close, capturing every moment for the reality show. Speedball said, "I'd heard that clothes make the man, Speed Freak." He continued with a taunting tone, "And in your case, it's totally true." Speed Freak, feeling the impact of the blow, grunted, The fight spills into the backyard, with Speedball keeping the pressure on Speed Freak. The production crew member, adjusting the equipment, steps closer to speak to Speedball while the camera keeps rolling. The crew member asked, "Sound was off for a second there, but any chance of that last part again?" Speedball, not missing a beat, replied, "Sure thing." He repeated the line, looking at Speed Freak with a grin. "And in your case, it's totally true." Chuckles. Speed Freak, still recovering from the attack, grunted again, The story continues in the backyard of the house in Stamford, Connecticut, where the battle between the new warriors and the villains rages on intensely. Night Thrasher faces off against Coldheart, blocking one of her attacks with his staff, while Namorita strikes her with an energy blast, forcing her to retreat. Coldheart, defending herself, exclaimed, "Wait a minute, I know you guys. You're those idiots from that reality show. I'm not getting taken down by Goldfish Girl and the Bondage Queen." Namorita, advancing with determination, landed a powerful punch on Coldheart, who staggered from the impact, and replied, "Beg to differ, Coldheart." Night Thrasher, still in the heat of the fight, delivered a hard kick to Coldheart's stomach, pushing her back even further, then glanced at a production crew member filming the action and said, "Could we cut out the part where she called me the Bondage Queen?" Microbe, standing nearby, holding Cobalt Man, while his bacterial powers corrode the villain's armor, overheard Night Thrasher's comment and shot back sarcastically, "Oh yeah, because Night Thrasher sounds so much straighter." He continued, focused on his task. "Got my bacterial beasties rusting, Cobalt Man. If anyone wants to track down that old Captain Marvel villain." The story continues outside the house in Stamford, Connecticut, where the battle between the new warriors and the villains is in full swing. A production crew member's camera captures the action, focusing on Namorita as she chases Nitro, who is attempting to flee down the street. A school bus is parked near Stamford Elementary School, with children playing in the yard in the background, oblivious to the approaching confrontation. Namorita, determined to stop Nitro, said, "Not to worry, Microbe, I'm on it." Namorita catches up to Nitro, and with a swift move, grabs him and hurls him violently onto the school bus, causing tremendous damage. The impact crumples the side of the bus, shattering windows, scattering debris across the street. Namorita, staring down Nitro with resolve, said, "On your feet, Nitro, and don't try any of your stupid explosions, because that's only going to make me hit you harder." Nitro, now sprawled and injured amid the wreckage of the bus, struggles to get up, reeling from the pain of the impact. He replied with difficulty, "Namorita, right? Aren't you the Submariner's cousin or something? Well, I'm afraid we're not the bargain basement losers you guys are used to, baby."
The story continues in Stamford, Connecticut, where the tension between the new warriors and the villains reaches a critical point. The camera of a production crew member, following the fight, shows Nitro in an intense close-up, his eyes glowing with energy, as he faces Namorita near the damaged school bus. Nitro, with a menacing smile, said, "You're playing with the big boys now." The energy around Nitro begins to intensify with sparks and bright lights emanating from his body, signaling he's about to unleash his explosive power. A wave of heat and light spreads outward, forcing Namorita to step back as the explosion starts to form. The blinding light engulfs everything around it, and the scene shifts to the Stamford Elementary School playground, where children had been playing moments earlier. Nitro's explosion, tears through the area, turning the scene into an inferno of fire and destruction, with the silhouettes of the children consumed by the shockwave. An aerial view reveals the magnitude of the catastrophe. A massive fireball and plume of smoke rise over Stanford, obliterating entire blocks, including the school and nearby houses, in a devastating radius that swallows everything in its path. The story continues in a scene of devastation where the consequences of Nitro's explosion in Stanford reverberate through the world of heroes. In a destroyed battlefield, beneath a sky tinged red by the sunset, Iron Man and Captain America stand face to face, separated by an invisible line of conflict. To the left, Iron Man is joined by allies like Falcon, hovering in the air, and other heroes who align with his side, ready to defend their cause. To the right, Captain America leads his group with Thing lifting a rock to shield the wounded, and other heroes like Invisible Woman and Human Torch visible in the background, prepared for the impending clash. The ground is littered with debris, rubble, broken equipment, torn flags, symbolizing the division that now separates the heroes. Firefighters and rescue teams work tirelessly in the background, trying to save survivors amid the destruction. The tension in the air is palpable as the two sides stare each other down, knowing that the civil war is just beginning. At the base of the image, the title, Civil War, Part 1 of 7, marks the start of this epic saga. The story continues in the devastated landscape of Stanford, Connecticut, where the heroes grapple with the aftermath of the explosion caused by Nitro. Iron Man and Captain America stand at a vantage point, surveying the destruction around them, as rescue teams work tirelessly among the rubble. Iron Man, looking at Captain America, said, "I'm told they've got a lead on Nitro. Word is he sneaked out of town, in the back of a pickup truck." Captain America, his gaze fixed on the devastation, replied, "All these children, Tony." The FEMA chief said there could be 800 or 900 casualties, all dead for a stupid reality TV show. He paused, his voice heavy with emotion, and asked, "Does it matter?" The two heroes descend to ground level, where the earth is covered in debris, and rescue teams search for survivors. Iron Man, walking beside Captain America, responded, "They should have called us Cap." Speedball knew the new warriors were out of their league. He continued, his tone serious. The whole country saw the tape, where they said they were only chasing ratings. The scene shifts to a nearby area, where firefighters work amid large rocks and wreckage, using equipment to detect signs of life. A firefighter, holding a device, calls out to Marvel Girl and Cyclops, who are assisting with the rescue. "Marvel Girl, Cyclops, we need some help over here. Motion detectors are picking something up 20 feet down, but we haven't got our diggers yet." The firefighters begin organizing the space, clearing debris to allow access. Another firefighter, coordinating the team, shouted, "Everybody back! Clear a little space, huh?" The story continues in the devastated landscape of Stanford, Connecticut, where the heroes persist in their rescue efforts following Nitro's explosion. Cyclops and Marvel Girl are among the rubble, coordinating their actions to aid survivors. Cyclops, looking at Marvel Girl, asked, "Can you handle this on your own, Rachel?" Marvel Girl, confident, replied, "I can handle it, Scott." The scene widens, revealing the rescue area, where firefighters and heroes work together to save lives. A firefighter, holding a radio, coordinates the team, and shouted, "6 more survivors, over by the school's north side. Bring blankets and a defibrillator." Wolverine, standing nearby, observes the situation with a serious expression, while Cyclops and Marvel Girl continue their efforts. Close to him, the Sentinel's giant surveillance robots patrol the area, monitoring the X-Men with their sensors. Wolverine, sensing the imposing presence of the machines, muttered, "You gotta be kidding me." A few meters away, an injured child, covered in dust, is cradled in her mother's arms, as the mother comforts her amid the chaos. The child, frightened, asked, "And Mommy?" The mother, holding her tightly, replied calmly, "It's okay, honey. They aren't going to hurt you. The Sentinels are only here to keep an eye on the X-Men. For us, they're the good guys." The story continues in the devastated landscape of Stamford, Connecticut, where heroes and Sentinels continue to monitor the rescue area. Wolverine, irritated by the Sentinels' presence, glares at one hovering over the rubble, while other heroes assist in the search. Wolverine said, "We volunteer to help with a federal emergency, and you're still following us around?" The scene shifts to the interior of a SHIELD aircraft, where an agent is seated, piloting and monitoring the situation. He replied, over the communicator, "Just doing our jobs, Wolverine." Outside the aircraft, the search for survivors continues amid the wreckage. Goliath, in his giant form, leads the rescue operation, helping to move large chunks of debris, alongside heroes like She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel. Goliath, with a firm tone, said, "It won't just be mutants they're watching after this one, Ms. Marvel. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. Mark my words." Ms. Marvel, beside him, asked, "You think?" Goliath, now in a close-up, surveys the destruction around him with a determined expression. He replied, "Getting after Philly. The Hulk crashing Vegas when he was drunk. They're saying the president's gonna kill the reality show." He continued, his tone grim, "This is the start of the witch hunts, honey. They'll be coming after us with torches and pitchforks." Ms. Marvel, reflecting on Goliath's words, murmured, "Yeah, well, maybe they're right this time, Goliath." The final scene shows Goliath, still in his giant form, aiding in the search, while Ms. Marvel flies beside him, holding large rocks in her hands to assist with the rescue. At the same time, a survivor is pulled from the rubble by rescue teams working tirelessly. Looking at the devastation around her, Ms. Marvel asked, "Who the hell can justify this?" The story continues with the consequences of the Stamford tragedy reverberating across the world. In a CNN studio, Larry King hosts a live interview discussing the impact of the incident involving superheroes. He poses a question to Miriam Sharp, who sits across from him with a serious expression. Miriam Sharp replied, "A ban on superheroes? Well, in a world with thousands of supervillains, that's obviously impossible, Larry." She continued, her tone firm, "But training them up and making them carry badges? Yes, I'd say that sounds like a reasonable response." The scene shifts to the interior of a large church in Stamford, where a memorial ceremony is being held for the victims of the explosion. The atmosphere is solemn, with colorful stained glass windows illuminating the crowd gathered in the pews, all sitting in silence as they listen to the priest at the pulpit. The priest, his voice heavy with emotion, said, "And so we ask you, Lord, for your mercy, not only for the souls of the children who perished, but for the super people whose carelessness caused this tragedy." Outside the church, a group of people, including the victims' families, begins to leave after the ceremony. A sign at the entrance indicates that the Stamford Memorial is scheduled for 11 a.m. Tony Stark is among those present, walking in silence, when a woman, overcome with anger and the pain of loss, recognizes him and exclaimed, "Tony Stark." The story continues outside the church in Stamford, Connecticut, where the memorial ceremony for the victims of the explosion has just concluded. Tony Stark is leaving the site, flanked by security guards, when a woman, overwhelmed by grief and rage, confronts him. She approaches Tony Stark and, in a gesture of contempt, spits in his face, before pointing at him with fury and shouting, "You filthy piece of crap." The woman, tears streaming down her face, glares at Tony Stark with hatred as the security guards attempt to intervene and de-escalate the situation. One of the guards, stepping between her and Tony, said, "Ma'am, please, we're gonna have to ask you to leave." The woman, even more outraged, refuses to back down and responds with a voice full of emotion. Pointing at Tony Stark, she exclaimed, "Leave what? My own son's funeral. Stark's the one you should be dragging away. Tony Stark, wiping his face with a handkerchief after the spit, tries to explain himself, maintaining his composure despite the insult, while the crowd around them watches the scene unfold with tension. He said, "Ma'am, I appreciate that you're upset, but the new warrior's recklessness had nothing to do with me." The confrontation continues in front of an improvised memorial with photos of the tragedy's victims affixed to a board. A person leaving the memorial, overhearing Tony Stark's words, retorts with an accusatory tone, "Oh yeah, and who finances the Avengers? Who's been telling kids for years that they can live outside the law as long as they're wearing tights?" The story continues outside the church in Stamford, Connecticut, where tension escalates after the memorial ceremony for the explosion's victims. Tony Stark, still at the center of the controversy, is confronted by a woman who, overcome with grief and rage, points at him with indignation. She shouted, "Cops have to train and carry badges. But that's too boring for Tony Stark. Nah, Joe Billionaire here says, all you need are some powers and a badass attitude, and you can have a place in his private super gang." The security guards, accompanying Tony Stark, attempt to manage the situation as the surrounding crowd begins to stir, watching the confrontation unfold. One of the guards, trying to move the woman away, said, "Somebody get her out of here." The woman, undeterred, continues her accusation, her voice brimming with emotion. As she glares at Tony Stark, she exclaimed, "You fund this sickness, Stark, with your dirty billions." She stormed off, descending the church steps, and shouted, "The blood of my little Damien is on your hands right now." A few meters away, Jonah Jameson, editor-in-chief of the Daily Bugle, observes the scene with interest, while Peter Parker, his photographer, captures everything with a camera. Jonah Jameson said, "I hope you're getting all this, Parker." The scene shifts to a CNN studio, where a live broadcast is underway. Bill O'Reilly, a well-known commentator, appears on screen, debating the issue of superheroes following the Stamford tragedy. He said, "Like Speedball, for example, nobody likes to speak ill of the dead. But here was a boy who, by all accounts, couldn't even name the President of the United States." He continued, his tone critical, "Their powers can be as awesome as nuclear weapons, Bill. Shouldn't they be tested before they're allowed to work in our communities?"
The story continues on a bustling New York street at night, where neon lights illuminate the facade of a nightclub called Laser Club. A trail of fire streaks across the sky, signaling the arrival of Human Torch, who descends in a blaze of flames toward the club's entrance, drawing the attention of everyone around. The club's sign glows in blue, and towering buildings like the YMCA and Dollar form the urban backdrop, while a crowd gathers in line, eager to get inside. Still in the air, Human Torch spots Sue Storm waiting at the entrance and said, "Hey, baby, sorry I'm late, but I had to rescue a bunch of cute kids from a burning orphanage on the way over here." Sue Storm, with a skeptical look, watches her brother land and replied, "Is that true, Johnny? Or are you just making stuff up again, so I don't get mad at you?" Human Torch touches down, extinguishing his flames as he hits the ground, and Sue steps forward, kissing his cheek in greeting. Johnny Storm, with a cocky grin, responded, "Well, swap orphans for babes, and burning building for signing autographs. And it's completely true, sweetie." Outside the club, before entering, Johnny Storm is approached by a bouncer at the VIP entrance. The bouncer said, "Paris and Lindsay are waiting upstairs, Johnny. Chicks couldn't believe it when I said you were dropping by." Johnny Storm, smiling, replied, "Chico, how's it hanging, big man?" Johnny Storm and Sue Storm are about to enter the club, and the line of people waiting outside watches their privileged arrival with indignation. Inside, the atmosphere is electric with colorful lights and a crowd dancing to the music, but the tension outside persists. A woman in line, frustrated after waiting for hours, exclaimed, "Hey, how come that loser's getting in when we've been waiting hours?" Johnny Storm, hearing the comment, turns to the woman with an arrogant smile and replied, "Tell you what, gorgeous. Next time you save the world from Galactus, you can borrow my free pass, K." A second woman, also in line, and now even angrier, shot back furiously, "What about the next time you blow up a school, jackass?" A man beside her, sharing the same outrage, shouted, "Yeah, what about the next time you kill some kids?" The story continues outside the Laser Club in New York, where tension escalates rapidly. Johnny Storm and Sue Storm, who were about to enter, are confronted by an enraged crowd surrounding them on the street. The nighttime atmosphere is lit by the neon glow of the club and streetlights, but the mood is hostile, with people from the line and passers-by closing in, pointing and shouting. Johnny Storm, caught off guard by the reaction, exclaimed, "What?" A man in the crowd, his face etched with anger, steps toward Johnny Storm, pointing at him with indignation. He shouted, "Man, you got a nerve. Swaggering around town after that. I was you. I'd be ashamed to go outside." Johnny Storm, now irritated, glares at the man and shot back with a defensive tone. "Hell are you shrieking about, Tubby? I got nothing to do with Speedball or the New Warriors. Those guys were C-list tops." The situation escalates quickly as a third man, consumed with fury, approaches Johnny Storm and yelled, "Baby killer." Sue Storm, hearing the insult, grows visibly worried and said, "Johnny, I don't like this. I want to go home." Johnny glances back, trying to make sense of the situation, but the crowd becomes even more agitated. Suddenly, a man in the mob hurls a bottle, striking Johnny's head with force, producing a loud sound. Cleash! Johnny collapses to the ground, bloodied and unconscious, knocked out by the impact. Sue Storm, seeing her brother hit, screams in desperation, "Johnny!" The crowd, now in a frenzy, surges toward Johnny on the ground. They begin to trample and beat him, with several men surrounding him, kicking and striking him, as others shout in rage. One of the men in the crowd exclaimed, "Hold him down! Hold him down!" People nearby, some still in the club's line, watch the scene with expressions of shock and anger as violence overtakes the street. The scene shifts to a news broadcast where Brian Deemer, a reporter, appears on screen, reporting on recent events. He said, "Human Torch, the latest in a series of attacks on New York super community, more at 11. Plus the growing pressure on the president." He continued, his tone serious. The people of Stanford ask, what are his proposals for superhero reform?
The story continues at the Baxter Building, the headquarters of the Fantastic Four, where a meeting of superheroes is taking place to discuss the fallout from the Stanford tragedy and the potential measures the government might impose. The cityscape at dusk, with the sky painted in shades of orange, is visible through the building's large windows, while the group of heroes gathers in a spacious room filled with advanced technology and scientific equipment. Among those present are numerous heroes, including Mr. Fantastic, Iron Man, Spider-Woman, She-Hulk, Falcon, Wasp, Yellow Jacket, Black Panther, Luke Cage, Wolverine, and others, all visibly concerned about the situation. Doctor Strange, with a serious tone, addresses Mr. Fantastic, who stands at the center of the room, leading the discussion. Dr. Strange asked, "So what are they saying, Dr. Richards, that I'll be forced to become a federal employee or face a warrant for my arrest?" Mr. Fantastic, holding a mug and analyzing the situation calmly, replied, "Actually, you were one of the few post-humans. They're hoping to seek a compromise with Steven." The conversation continues, and Luke Cage, standing beside Wasp, observes the group with a look of discontent. He said, "Looks to me like they're closing us down, Wasp." Wasp, holding a drink and seated on a couch next to Yellow Jacket, retorted with a tone of disbelief, "Pension plans and annual vacation time. It's ridiculous. What are they trying to do? Turn us into civil servants?" The story continues in the Baxter Building, where the superhero meeting presses on, with tension mounting as they debate the implications of the Superhuman Registration Act. The spacious room, filled with technology and featuring large windows overlooking the city at dusk, is crowded with heroes, including Iron Man, Mr. Fantastic, She-Hulk, Falcon, Wasp, Yellow Jacket, Black Panther, Luke Cage, Wolverine, Spider-Woman, Cyclops, and others. Iron Man, at the center of the discussion, speaks with conviction, trying to persuade the others of the need for change. He said, "Or marking us more legitimate. Why shouldn't we be better trained and publicly accountable?" Mr. Fantastic, listening closely, responds to a young hero beside him, Patriot, who seems troubled by the direction of the conversation. Mr. Fantastic said, "No, it's Patriot, right? No, I don't think anyone here could seriously advocate a superhero strike, son." Patriot, still uneasy, looks around for support from the other heroes and said, "Somebody said we should go on strike. If they mess with us like this, does anybody else think that's a good idea?" Cyclops, standing nearby, tries to steer the discussion and seek a consensus among the group. He asked, "So what's the general consensus?" Iron Man, taking the floor again, continues to defend his stance with resolve. As the other heroes listen, some with expressions of doubt, he said, "As far as I'm concerned, Stanford was our wake-up call, what alcoholics refer to as a moment of clarity." He went on, "Becoming public employees makes perfect sense if it helps people sleep a little easier." Falcon, clearly unsettled by the idea, retorts with indignation, pointing to his mask, a symbol of his heroic identity. He exclaimed, "I can't believe I'm hearing this. The masks are a tradition. We can't just let them turn us into super cops." Yellow Jacket, standing beside Falcon, responds with a practical tone, holding a drink and looking at him seriously. He said, "Are you kidding? We're lucky people have tolerated this. For as long as they have, Sam, why should we be allowed to hide behind these things?" Wolverine, positioned toward the back, listens to the exchange and cuts in with a gruff tone, staring at Yellow Jacket. He said, "Because the world ain't so nice. Outside your ivory tower, bub." Thing, standing next to Spider-Woman, also speaks up, his face showing frustration as he points at Wolverine. He said, "Tell me about it, Stumpy. You think Johnny would have ended up in the hospital last night if morons like you wasn't out there, giving us a bad name?" The story continues in the Baxter Building, where the superhero meeting presses on, now with an even more heated tone. The spacious room, with large windows, showcasing the city at dusk, is filled with heroes, including Spider-Man, Iron Man, Mr. Fantastic, She-Hulk, Falcon, Wasp, Yellow Jacket, Black Panther, Luke Cage, Wolverine, Spider-Woman, Cyclops, and others. Spider-Man, hanging from the ceiling, watches the discussion and speaks with a concerned tone. He said, "Who knows? But if they're forcing everybody to work for Uncle Sam, I think a whole lot of people might just hang up their tights." Black Cat, standing beside Invisible Woman, hears Spider-Man's words and, surprised, exclaimed, "Spider-Man." Invisible Woman, near Spider-Man, tries to calm the debate, offering a more optimistic perspective as she looks at the other heroes. She said, "The secret identity thing isn't such a big deal. The Fantastic Four have been public since the very beginning, and it's never really been a serious concern." Spider-Man, still hanging from the ceiling, turns to Invisible Woman with a worried expression and retorted, "Yeah, well, not until that day I come home and find my wife impaled on an octopus arm and the woman who raised me begging for her life." The discussion continues, and Ant-Man, standing next to Falcon and Daredevil, steps in with a more cautious tone, attempting to bring a rational perspective to the group. He asked, "Does anybody else think we're being a little paranoid here? After all, this is all still just speculation at the moment, right?" Daredevil, beside Ant-Man, responds with a grim tone, holding a coin that glints in his hand as he reflects on the situation. He said, "No, this has been building up for a long time, Nighthawk. Stanford's just the straw that broke the camel's back." He continued with an air of certainty, "This is the end of the way we do business. You can smell it in the air." The story continues aboard the Shield, helicarrier hovering 6 miles above New York with the sky at dusk, painting the horizon in reddish hues. The massive floating structure, with its giant propellers and futuristic design, dominates the exterior view, while inside, a command room is illuminated by cool lights and control panels. Captain America enters the room where Commander Hill, the current leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., stands accompanied by agents monitoring operations. Upon seeing him, Commander Hill said, Captain America," approaching her with a serious expression, replied, Commander Hill." Commander Hill, maintaining a firm stance, looks at Captain America and begins speaking while agents in the background continue their tasks, monitoring screens and communicators. She said, "I'm told that 23 of your friends are meeting in the Baxter building right now to discuss how the super people should respond to the president's big solution." She continued with an inquisitive tone, "You think they're going to go for it?" Captain America, keeping his expression neutral, responded cautiously, "I don't think that's for me to judge." Commander Hill, now with a more direct tone, stares at Captain America firmly as the dusk light reflects through the command room's windows. She said, "Come on, Rogers, cut the crap. We're never going to be tight, like you and Nick Fury, but I'm still the acting head of S.H.I.E.L.D. Respect the badge, if nothing else." The story continues aboard the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier hovering 6 miles above New York, with the dusk sky reflecting shades of red and purple through the command room's windows. Captain America stands at the center of the room, facing Commander Hill, while S.H.I.E.L.D. agents monitor operations in the background, with screens and lights flashing. In a high-tech environment, Captain America, with a grave expression, said, "I think this plan will split us down the middle. I think you're going to have us at war with one another." Commander Hill, maintaining her firm stance, listens to Captain America's words as agents around them watch the exchange closely. A S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, standing beside Commander Hill, can't contain his disbelief and said, "What's the matter with these guys? How can anyone argue with superheroes being properly trained and paid for a living?" Captain America, without breaking eye contact with Commander Hill, replied with a firm tone, "A lot." Dum Dugan, a veteran S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, standing next to Commander Hill, joins the conversation, trying to gauge the scope of the issue. He asked, "How many rebels do you estimate here, Captain?" Commander Hill, with a sharper tone, added, "Any majors?" Captain America, reflecting on the situation, replied, "A few, but mostly the heroes who work close to the streets, like Daredevil and Luke Cage." Commander Hill, now with a challenging look, stares at Captain America and asked, "So nobody you can't handle?" Captain America, taken aback by the question, retorted, "Excuse me?" Commander Hill, unflinching, responded firmly, "You heard." The story continues aboard the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier hovering 6 miles above New York, with the dusk sky reflecting shades of red through the command room's windows. Captain America and Commander Hill stand at the center of the room, locked in a heated discussion, while S.H.I.E.L.D. agents observe from the background, monitoring screens and equipment. Commander Hill, with a serious tone, explains the situation to Captain America. She said, "This proposal goes to a vote in 2 weeks' time and could be law in as little as a month. But we can't go in half-cocked. We're already developing an anti-superhuman response unit here. But we need to make sure the Avengers are on side and that you're out there leading the Avengers." Captain America, with a determined expression, raises his hand in a gesture of refusal and replied, "Forget about it." He continued, his voice firm, "You're asking me to arrest people who risk their lives for this country every day of the week." Commander Hill, maintaining her authoritative stance, stares at Captain America and countered, "No, I'm asking you to obey the will of the American people, Captain." Captain America, now visibly angry, responds with a warning tone as the tension between them escalates. He said, "Don't play politics with me, Hill. Superheroes need to stay above that stuff." Or Washington starts telling us who the supervillains are. Commander Hill, unflinching, looks directly at Captain America as agents in the background begin to ready themselves, the sound of weapons being cocked, echoing through the room. "Chik, chak. Chik, chak." She replied, "I thought supervillains were guys in masks who refused to obey the law." The command room falls silent for a moment as SHIELD agents take positions, aiming their weapons at Captain America, prepared to act if the situation escalates further. The story continues aboard the SHIELD helicarrier hovering 6 miles above New York, where the tension between Captain America and Commander Hill reaches a breaking point. The command room, lit by cold lights and with large windows, revealing the reddish dusk sky, is filled with SHIELD agents, aiming their weapons at Captain America, ready to act. Captain America, with an expression of outrage, faces the agents and asked, "Is this the hit squad you've been training to take down heroes?" Commander Hill, maintaining her firm stance, responds with a calm yet authoritative tone, as the agents around her remain on high alert. She said, "Nobody wants a war, Captain. The people are just sick and tired of living in the Wild West." Captain America, unwavering, retorts with conviction, as the agents keep their weapons trained on him, the sound of "chik" echoing in the room. He said, "Masked heroes have been a part of this country for as long as anyone can remember." Commander Hill, with a tone of disdain, replies while looking directly at Captain America. She said, "So's smallpox. Now grow up and stop being an idiot, huh? Nobody's saying you can't do your job." Dum Dugan, standing beside her, adds with a practical tone, "It's just time you went legitimate, like the rest of us, soldier." Captain America, now with a steady voice, tries to de-escalate the situation, addressing the agents surrounding him. He said, "Weapons down, boys." Commander Hill, however, counters Captain America's order, maintaining control over her agents. She said, "Stand your ground, gentlemen. Captain America is not in command here." Captain America, tension evident on his face, repeats his order with greater urgency. As the agents hesitate, their weapons still raised, he said, "Weapons down, or I will not be responsible for what comes next." Commander Hill, unrelenting, issues a new command to the agents, preparing them for more drastic action. She said, "Tranquilizers on, boys. Get ready." Captain America, now with an expression of fury and disbelief, stares at Commander Hill as the room teeters on the brink of conflict. He exclaimed, "This is insane. Completely insane. Damn you to hell for this, Hill." The story continues aboard the SHIELD helicarrier, where the tension between Captain America and Commander Hill erupts into a physical confrontation. The command room, illuminated by cold lights and with the reddish dusk sky visible through the windows, is filled with SHIELD agents, aiming their weapons at Captain America. Commander Hill, with an expression of determination and anger, faces Captain America and exclaimed, "Damn you to hell for making me do it." The situation escalates rapidly as Commander Hill gives the order for the agents to fire tranquilizers. The command, "Tranquilizers now," echoes through the room, and the agents shoot tranquilizer darts toward Captain America. He reacts with agility, using his shield to block the darts, which ricochet and fly around the room as he charges at the agents. One agent, struck by a deflected dart, cries out in pain, "AGHN." Captain America, with precise movements, disarms and takes down the agents around him, hurling his shield at one, who collapses to the floor, while others attempt to restrain him. Tranquilizer darts continue to zip through the air, some scattering across the floor of the room, with markings like T-237 visible on their sides, indicating the type of tranquilizer being used. The fight presses on, and Captain America, now surrounded, faces the agents with determination, while Commander Hill watches the scene unfold, maintaining her command position as the room descends into chaos. The story continues aboard the SHIELD helicarrier, where the confrontation between Captain America and the SHIELD agents intensifies. The command room, lit by cold lights, and with the reddish dusk sky visible through the windows, serves as the stage for a chaotic battle. Captain America, surrounded by armed agents, uses his shield to block tranquilizer darts that continue to be fired at him. The sound of whiz, echoing as the darts zip through the air. He moves with agility, taking down agents with precise strikes, while others attempt to restrain him. An agent, struck by one of Captain America's blows, cries out in pain, UNH, as he collapses to the floor with glass in the room shattering in the background from the force of the impact. Captain America, with swift movements, disarms more agents, using his shield to strike one in the head, while another tries to fire additional darts, only to have them blocked with precision. Captain America presses on, hurling his shield at another agent, who is hit and falls, as he braces to face more opponents. The shield ricochets back to his hand, and he uses it to deflect new attacks, showcasing his skill and resolve amid the chaos. Dum Dum Dugan, watching the scene with frustration, shouts at the agents, urging them to escalate their efforts. He exclaimed, "Take him down! Take him down!" Captain America, now grappling with an agent, attempting to subdue him, grabs the opponent's arm and stares at him with a fierce expression of determination, while agents in the background continue positioning themselves to attack. He said, "Don't even think about it, little man." The story continues aboard the SHIELD helicarrier, where the confrontation between Captain America and the SHIELD agents reaches its climax. The command room, now in chaos, is littered with fallen agents and shattered glass. Captain America, in the midst of the fight, uses his shield to block attacks and take down more agents, advancing with determination. No one can stop Captain America, who with great strength and agility takes down everyone in his path, including Commander Hill, who falls wounded. Commander Hill gives an urgent order to all SHIELD units, while Captain America continues forward. She says, "Maria Hill to all units. Stop Captain America. I repeat, stop Captain America." In the final scene, Captain America, realizing he must escape, runs toward the large windows of the command room. With a powerful movement, he throws himself against the glass, destroying everything in his path. The glass explodes into thousands of fragments that fly through the air, reflecting the reddish light of the evening, as Captain America leaves the control room, falling towards the exterior of the helicarrier, determined to escape. The story continues, outside the SHIELD helicarrier hovering 6 miles above New York, with the evening sky painted in shades of red and purple. Captain America, after shattering the command room windows, is now outside, falling through the air, toward a moving aircraft positioned below the helicarrier. SHIELD agents, stationed on the helicarrier's platform, open fire on him, the sound of bracca bracca echoing as bullets cut through the air. Captain America, still mid-air, uses his shield to block the shots, with the sound of tang tang ringing out with each impact as he closes in on the moving aircraft, determined to escape. The scene shows Captain America falling with agility, his shield still deflecting the gunfire, as the agents keep firing, their weapons unleashing bursts of bullets that ricochet all around him. He prepares to land on the moving aircraft with fragments of glass and debris falling around him, reflecting the reddish light of the sky. Still in the air, Captain America adjusts his trajectory, using his shield to block more shots as the moving aircraft rapidly approaches. The agents aim carefully, the sound of tang tang echoing with every hit on the shield, while he positions himself to land on the aircraft. The scene shifts to the sky, where another combat ship, identified as Warhawk 1, approaches the helicarrier, its lights flashing against the darkening sky. A SHIELD agent, on the platform, observes the incoming ship and speaks into a communicator. "Warhawk 1, you are clear to land. Over." He continued, "Roger that, base command. But what's the situation with the ground team down there?" Meanwhile, Captain America, still airborne, and about to land on the moving aircraft, braces for impact as the agents keep firing, and the combat ship Warhawk 1 closes in, ready to intervene. The story continues, outside the SHIELD helicarrier hovering 6 miles above New York, with the evening sky tinged in shades of red and purple. Captain America, having escaped the command room, is falling through the air toward a moving aircraft hovering below the helicarrier. He lands hard on top of the aircraft, the impact of his shield against the glass cockpit, creating a loud shadunk and partially shattering the cockpit structure, shards of glass flying in all directions. The pilot inside, caught off guard by the impact, exclaims, "Jesus!" Captain America, now balanced atop the aircraft, holds on tightly as the vehicle rocks from the impact, strong wind whipping around him. He looks at the pilot through the partially broken cockpit glass and, with a stern expression, says, "Keep flying, son, and watch that potty mouth." The scene shifts to the helicarrier's platform, where SHIELD agents are in a frenzy scrambling to close the doors of another aircraft to pursue Captain America. The platform is chaotic, with agents running and shouting orders, weapons still in hand, as they watch Captain America's escape. One agent, struggling to shut the doors, yells, "Close the doors! Close the doors! Somebody give me a hand here, huh?" Meanwhile, Captain America remains on top of the aircraft as it speeds through the sky, away from the helicarrier. Another agent on the platform, seeing the escape, shouts in frustration, "Look out!" The aircraft continues its course with Captain America holding firmly to the top, shield still in hand, as the agents try to regroup and respond to the situation. The story continues in the skies above New York, where Captain America, having escaped from the SHIELD helicarrier, is atop a moving aircraft hovering at an altitude of 6 miles. The evening sky is a spectacle of red, purple, and orange hues, with scattered clouds reflecting the light of the setting sun. Captain America, balancing on the aircraft's surface, holds on tightly with one hand, while his shield is lodged into the partially shattered glass cockpit, the impact of his landing still visible in the surrounding shards. The strong wind whips around him as the aircraft speeds forward, its wings and turbines emitting a faint bluish glow. The aircraft, an agile combat craft, equipped with weaponry, cuts through the sky with precision, the sound of its turbines and the rushing wind filling the air with a sense of urgency. Captain America, maintaining his balance, looks ahead with determination, planning his next move as the aircraft pulls away from the helicarrier. The cracked cockpit glass, now pierced by his shield, reflects the reddish sky, emphasizing the intensity of his escape. The scene shifts to a wider view, showing the same aircraft, with Captain America on top, flying toward the horizon. The helicarrier remains in the distance, its imposing silhouette against the darkening sky, with blinking lights along its structure. The aircraft continues its trajectory, with Captain America holding firmly to the top, his shield still embedded in the cockpit, as he escapes from the forces of SHIELD, determined not to be captured. The story continues aboard the SHIELD helicarrier hovering 6 miles above New York, where Commander Hill is in the command room, dealing with the aftermath of Captain America's escape. The room, lit by cold lights, and with the reddish evening sky visible through the windows, is filled with agents monitoring the situation on screens and communicators. Commander Hill, with a frustrated expression, thinks about Captain America, reflecting on his actions, and says to herself, "You idiot, we were trying to save lives." The scene shifts to the Baxter Building, where the meeting of superheroes continues, amid a growing atmosphere of tension. The spacious room, with large windows, revealing the starry night sky, is filled with heroes, including Iron Man, Mr. Fantastic, She-Hulk, Doctor Strange, Falcon, Wasp, Yellow Jacket, Black Panther, Luke Cage, Wolverine, Spider-Woman, Cyclops, and others. Spider-Woman, standing beside Thing, looks up at the sky through the windows of the Baxter Building. Her eyes widen as she notices an imposing and mysterious figure floating outside, visible against the star-filled background. The figure with a large, domed head is the Watcher, a being who observes and records the events of the universe, his presence sending a chill down Spider-Woman's spine. She says, am I the only one here who can see a big, dome-headed guy staring at everybody? Doctor Strange, standing at the center of the room, rises above the other heroes, his figure highlighted against the night sky, visible through the windows. He looks at Spider-Woman and then at the watcher outside, immediately recognizing the significance of his presence, and replies in a grave tone. His name is the Watcher, Spider-Woman, and he only appears to record moments of great change and enormous upheaval. Doctor Strange, with a concerned expression, continues speaking as the other heroes around him, including Wolverine and Black Cat, listen intently, sensing the weight of the moment. He continues, "His presence now does not bode well." The story continues in Washington, D.C., where the controversy over the Superhuman Registration Act is gaining momentum. In front of the White House, a large crowd of protesters gathers, holding signs with messages like "Justice for Damien" and "Register Unfair Powers." The atmosphere is tense, with people of all ages, some with expressions of anger, others of sorrow, demonstrating against the presence of superheroes, while American flags flutter in the background, contrasting with the clear sky and the autumn trees surrounding the scene. The scene shifts to a CNN news studio, where a journalist or political commentator is live on air, discussing the recent events. He stands with a screen behind him, displaying images of the protest, speaking in an analytical tone. "No, the fact that Congress has responded so swiftly just proves what an effective political operator Miriam Sharp has become. She and the other Stanford reformists have really tapped into America's quiet discomfort with superhuman misbehavior here." Outside the White House, Miriam Sharp, one of the leaders of the reform movement, is surrounded by protesters and reporters. She holds a photo of her son, Damien, one of the victims of the Stanford tragedy. As she speaks to the press, her face marked by both pain and determination, the signs around her continue to demand justice, and the crowd supports her, chanting slogans as cameras capture the moment. The final scene takes place in a government meeting room where a heated discussion is underway. The room is formal, with an American flag in the background and a long wooden table where several government officials are seated, reviewing reports and documents. One government official, seated at the table, recounts the recent events with a tone of disbelief, and then he landed the jet in a football field before taking the pilot for a hamburger and fries. Ain't that just like Captain America? Making sure a $2 billion warplane don't get damaged, no matter how much trouble he's in. The Secretary of Defense, sitting at the head of the table, listens to the account with an irritated expression, while other officials exchange concerned glances around him. He replies in a stern tone, "I'm glad you think this is funny, Mr. Secretary, because I was under the impression that our registration plan was controversial enough." The story continues in Washington, D.C., where a government meeting about the Superhuman Registration Act and Captain America's escape is underway. The scene begins outside a formal meeting room with large windows, offering a view of the White House at sunset, where protesters have gathered, holding signs with messages like "Justice for Damien" and "Register Unfair Powers," demanding justice. The Secretary of Defense stands outside, speaking with other government officials who are reviewing reports and maps. He expresses his concern about the situation, saying, "Cap going underground means every superhero who disagrees with us suddenly has a figurehead." The scene shifts to a closer angle, still outside the meeting room, showing Iron Man, Mr. Fantastic, and Yellow Jacket present as representatives of the superheroes who support the Registration Act. Iron Man, at the center of the group, responds with determination, while Mr. Fantastic and Yellow Jacket listen closely beside him. He says, "Then we find ourselves a leader of our own, sir." The Secretary of Defense, still outside, looks at Iron Man with a mix of curiosity and caution, while the other officials around them observe the exchange, some holding papers and pens, others watching with concerned expressions. He asks, "What are you suggesting, Mr. Stark?" Iron Man, with a firm and confident tone, faces the Secretary of Defense and the others present, as Mr. Fantastic and Yellow Jacket stand by his side, ready to back his proposal. He says, You push ahead with registration. As planned, gentlemen, leave Captain America to us.
Hey there, epic nerds. That's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like it, share it with your friends, and leave a comment with your opinions and suggestions for the next sagas. Stay tuned, because in the next video, we'll start Civil War 2. That's 2 videos per week. See you next time.